So oftentimes you're not losing deals because the leads are bad or the estimates are too high. A lot of times it's just because you're not following up or your team's not following up. And so here I want to show how to do follow-up compliance rate. And so we're going to break it down week by week, and we're going to be able to show how you can convert demand into book jobs. And so this is going to be a fairly complex, section because it's not so straightforward to do this stuff, but bear with me and we can knock this out. So I want to create something like this, a follow-up compliance rate. And so the columns, which you don't really need the columns, but it's just the number of follow-ups due right here. And then from here, we're going to create the red line, which is the compliance rate. And then the orange line, super thin, is just, what is the minimum, right? And so, and then you'll just be able to see like, hey, there's a lot of training that needs to be done. And so let's get started. So we have two data sets here, and we need to calculate everything that has black column headings. But let me just walk through this data set. I know it's going to look sort of overwhelming, but it's something there's a high chance you've seen it before if you're in the HVAC space, because I work with HVAC clients and I've create these types of data sets, and you can recreate this in Service Titan with custom fields. Or I mean, you could do it manually. If you're doing, say, 5 jobs a day and you have 20 leads a day, then, it could take somebody maybe 30 minutes a day to input the data to where you could recreate these types of things. But what you would need is an estimate date and time. So just to be clear, this is from the estimate date, not from the lead date. Like not when you received the lead, but from whenever you gave the estimate. And then you have lead source, the location, we're here in Texas, job type, system type, estimate amount, gross margin, like all these different things. And to calculate this, you really don't need a lot of these, but what you do need is the estimate ID, the estimate date and time, and then you could have the owner name, whoever's in charge of, handling the leads. And then from here, you're going to have these two columns, which you would have to create. How many touch points do you want within a week, and how many touch points do you want within 2 weeks? And then you also have, when do you want the first touch point to be from the estimate date? And so we need to get a week start number because we're doing this by week. You could do it by month, but you want to be granular. You want to do it by week because it's going to let you see things before, it gets to be too late. If you do this monthly or quarterly, then you're letting too much time pass. And so to calculate the week start number, what we do is we need to say, hey, give me this date and then subtract the day of the week from it. And I know that sounds confusing. Let me just show you what I mean. Right, so we have this here, and it's just formatted like this, even though there is a date, but the formatting here is as a date. So what we need is we want the weekday. What is the weekday here? And it's the 5th day of the week, which means Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And so what we want to do is we want to subtract this 5 from this, meaning equals this minus this. And now we can see that the day here is going to be a Saturday. So because Sunday is starting at 1. So it's subtracting before the Sunday. So then we need to add 1 back to this to get the Sunday, because the week start is the Sunday, and then we want the day of the week, or then we want the date of that week, of that Sunday. And that's why you see 12/28 here, because it's taking the initial date, the January 1st, and then subtracting the weekday, which is the 5th, or not the 5th, but 5, and then it's adding 1 back to it. It's a little bit confusing, but it's the way to do it. And so if you don't quite understand, you can rewatch the video or just shoot me an email. And then the next thing we need is the first touch time. When was the first time they were contacted after the estimate was given? And that's where this other sheet comes in, because what this is just essentially the different touch points for the same people, right? So you can see this is the estimate ID. So this estimate was, contacted 7 times, right? And you can see that here, attempt number 7. And so what we want to calculate is we want to calculate the minimum time based off of the estimate ID. So essentially we want, I think it's actually just the first row. Yeah. So 6-5. So this right here. So 11:40 a.m. on the 5th. And so what you can see is that you need to use the minifs function. So give me the minimum value if, and then you can choose. And in this example, we want the estimate ID. So we're gonna do if the cadence profile here is NA, which means there's no follow required. You essentially, the deal is over. Then return a blank, or give me the minimum from this data set. And that's what the minifs function does. And there's also a maxifs, just so you know, we're not using it here. But there's also a maxifs. So that's what that's doing. It's giving me the minimum of the touch date column based on the estimate ID, based on this right here. And we can just see, let me just go through here and try to find this. And you have it right here. And you can see it's January 2nd at 2:55. Right? January 2nd at 2:55. Okay, and so now we want to get the first touch hours because we want this to be less than 20, well, less whatever the is in your SLA agreement, right? So we want it to be less than 24. But again, you can fill this column in with whatever data you want. Okay, so the next thing we need to subtract. Essentially, we're going to say the same thing. If this is blank, then give me blank. So you can see this part of the function here. If the first touch date time is blank, give me blank. Otherwise, subtract the first touch date and time minus the estimate date and time. So if this is not blank, take this number and then subtract it from this number here. And you can see, so this is January 1st, 9 a.m. This is January 2nd, 2:55. So, it's 24 hours would be 9 a.m. January 2nd. And then you have another 5 hours, right? Almost 6, right? And then that's where you get 24 plus 5 and 29. And then 55 minutes is 90% of an hour. But the final thing you have to do, this is where it gets a little bit tricky, is you need to multiply it times 24. And the reasoning is because if you do equals this minus this, you're going to get 1.25. But the thing, is that right? First date, first touch date and time. Yeah, so you're getting 1.25, which is the number of days. But we need to multiply that times 24. So when you multiply this times 24, that's the number of hours, 29.92, which is what you have here. So that's a little bit tricky, but again, pause the video. You have the formula here. Download the spreadsheet, link in the description. Or if you don't quite get it, shoot me an email. Okay, so the next thing we need to do in this follow-up touch points is we need to just count the number of times the estimate ID is here. And in doing so, that'll tell us the number of follow-ups because each row here is a follow-up, right? So we're going to have 7 for this one. And so you can see this is the date and time, this is the lead, and then this is also, what happened. Text, spoke on the phone, text, no answer, text. And so you might also have emails, email bounce. So like different scenarios. Actually over here. And so just count if S. I mean, I can redo all these formulas if you want, but essentially it's just count if S. And then we want to count the number of times the estimate ID, comma, is this. Oh, okay. That's for 14 days. So we need to add in, sorry. Yeah, it's actually good that I did that formula because it would explain it to you. So the CountFS is exactly right. Actually, here, hold on. I'll just fix it. And then we have that, but the other variable that we need is, because I didn't see the heading here, within 7 days. So then we need touch day index, right? So from here, we need the touch day index here. So this is telling you how many days from when the estimate was given. And we want this to be less than or equal to 7. See if that works. Yep. And so that works here. So that's how you're getting the match. And so the thing is, with the next one, it's the same exact formula. So I won't redo it. The only difference is the less than or equal to 7 now becomes less than or equal to 14. And now you can see this matches with this. So again, pause the video, shoot me an email. It's sometimes with data modeling, structuring the data set before is like very time consuming and a little bit challenging sometimes, because in the end you want a pretty chart, right? But to be able to structure it, to be able to create the chart, there's 10 steps before and so yeah. So we have these two columns, and so the next thing we need was the follow-up compliant. So this is essentially ones and zeros, and that's what we want. Now we can count the number of ones, count the number of zeros, get the compliant, percentage, all that good stuff. And so the way we know if it's compliant, and again, this is going to be a little bit of a maybe scary formula, but it's not bad, I promise. So the first thing we need is if the follow-up required flag is 0, then give me a 1. So right, we have follow-up required flag here. So any 0 is a 1, which means there's no follow-up required. Everything was good. And then the next part is we have if a follow-up required equals 1, then we need to show this here, meaning and the first touch hours is not blank, meaning that you actually contacted the person. The next part is the first touch hours is less than or equal to the required hours in the SLA. So you can see right here, 29.9 is not less than 24. And then the next part is 7-day touches is greater than or equal to required touches. So here in column U, we have the required number of touches. And then in column AA, we have the actual number of touches. So you can see here, 4 is greater than 3. So that part is good. And then the same thing for the 14-day. So is 5 greater than or equal to 5? And the answer is yes. But the reason here why you're getting a 0 is because this section here, 29.9 is greater than 24, so therefore it's 0 for everything. So if this is 0, then 1, then this is automatically a 1. But if all of these other requirements are met, then it's also a 1. And so let's try to find something. Where that makes. I'm trying to find like a 0 to where there's also a 1. Or so sorry, where this is a 1 and this is also a 1 right here. Right? So this matches all the requirements. So 3 is equal to 3, 5 is equal to 5, 6.6 is less than 24. So that matches everything. Okay, so 13 and a half minutes in, and now we can actually do the charts and visualizations. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we need to just see how many follow-ups are due based on the week start number, right? So we need to get a list of the week start numbers, and then we're just going to start to count things. So how many follow-ups are due based on the follow-up required flag, right? And so we have a follow-up required flag here. Remember, we used the 0, and here what you're seeing, the reason why you're seeing 0 is because the project was either sold or canceled. So let's get a unique list of the week number. So week number, so equals unique. We can call it, beginning of the week or whatever you want to call it, week start. So we want a unique list of this column. And so I'm just going to highlight this. I'm not going to highlight, you see where X turns sort of green? We don't want that. We want the week start in the formula here. And so we have that. I just got to format it. So here. And also you want this to be in sequence, which it is, but if it wasn't for some reason, let me just make up a date here. Say this was, 1/5 or whatever, 1/8. What you'll see is that now you have 1/8 first, but we want to sort this, and the easy way to do that is with the sort function. So you just do sort just like that, and it automatically sorts that. And it's putting 1/8 in here, which isn't a Sunday, right? Because the 4th is a Sunday, and so the 8th, I guess, would be Thursday. But yeah, but I'll delete this. I'll just copy and paste that back, and so we don't have that problem. So you can see the 8th is gone. And then I'm going to copy this and then press Control Shift V to remove the formula. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is, I'm just going to copy and paste this, but we need to see how many follow-ups are due and what is the compliant count, right? Because, let me paste this here. So equals count if S, because we want to count if follow-ups due is 1 and the week number is 1228. So count if follow-up required flag here is 1, and then comma, and the week start is, I think it's in cell B3. Yep, B3 here. So what you can do here is just double click and that'll autofill down. So to get the follow-up compliant count, we need to see how many compliant ones are there based off of the week start number. And so the way we do that is we need to do sum if S, and we are going to sum, let me see real quick, we're going to sum the follow-up compliant flag. So equals sum if S, so we're going to sum this column here where the follow-up required flag is 1, comma, and the week start here, comma, is B3. And then again, you can drag this down. And so you have this here. And so now you can get your percentage. How compliant are you? Control Shift 5, just divide those two. So it's how compliant are you based on, your standards, right? Which was, I think, 3 touch points within a week, and then 5 touch points within 2 weeks. And then minimum acceptable, I'm just going to put a number here and I'll show you why. And then equals this, and then just drag this down. And if you do it that way, you can set, you can make this dynamic. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to we want to create the chart here. And so the columns are going to be follow-ups due. The red line is your actual compliance rate, and the orange line is going to be your threshold. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight these. I'm going to go down, highlight these, and then press Control, hold down Control, and then highlight this column here. And then I'm going to go to Insert, Recommended Charts, and you can see it's the first one. If you don't see it there for some reason, All Charts, Combo, and then here you see the red line, but it's on the bottom. And the reason is because you're comparing, 17% to an axis of 50. So we need a secondary axis. So you can just check that box to get that. And then we can call this, follow-up compliance rate by week. And I'll make this a little bit smaller. I'll make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so now there's a couple more things. The first thing is I want to change the color of the columns because you can't even see them. But now, and the reason why I didn't highlight this is because I want to show you a trick. If you just go to minimum acceptable, press Control Shift down, copy, and then click on the chart and paste, you can see the line. It automatically shows up. You could have highlighted, this along with this, but I wanted to show that. And so the next thing we want to do is make the columns wider, change the color, and also make this green line quite a bit thinner. It's taking up too much real estate. So you can click on that, click the little paint bucket. You can go to solid line if you want. It's orange, and then let's just cut this down to maybe a 1 point, and then you can add whatever kind of dash you want to add, just enough to see it but not be in the way. And then I'm going to click on these little columns here. And then from here, I can make them thicker. You can also change the color of them, but right here, I want to fix the width. I don't know why it's orange. Let's just make it blue. And then now you can actually see it. And then if you want the percentages, it's going to be a little bit noisy because there's going to be 52 data points, but you can click on the line and then the little crosshair and then data labels. But you see it's too noisy. So maybe you just want to pick and choose the high points or the low points. And you can delete, if you double click on one, you can just delete that one if you want to. But I'm going to remove that just so it's not so noisy. Okay, so that's sort of the first part. took 20 minutes and 30 seconds to set the problem up, but I warned you. I warned you in the beginning. And so the next part is we want to create this here, which is we need to essentially get this percentage in a single cell. And we want to do it by Alex Martinez, the owner, and the lead source. You could also change this to the job type, right? You could change this to, you could do bins, meaning what is the project size? Okay, what is Alex Martinez's, follow-up rate on $0 to $500 deals, $501 to $2,500 deals, $2,501 to $5,000 deals. You could do it all this way, because then what you would see is like, hey, they're not following up on, $10,000+ deals. And so that would be another useful way, maybe even more useful than this way. But I'll show you how to start this part here. So the first thing we need is we want to get a unique list of the owner name. And so I'll just go right here. So we can say owner name equals unique, and then table, and then it's called owner name, right? But if you remember before, we did the sort function, because here I want to sort this alphabetically. And so we just wrap it with sort. Oh, and then here, and then Control C, Control Shift V, because I don't want the values, or yeah, I don't want the formula. And then the next thing, again, sort unique table lead source. And we have that here, Control C, Control Shift V. And then now we just need to put this across the top like this, but I'm not going to drag it that way because it's annoying. I'm going to copy this, and then right here, I'm going to right click and press ST. Paste special, so the S, and then transpose for the T, so ST. Let's just make this a little bit wider. Okay, so how do we calculate this? And so because it's a percentage, then it's going to be a fraction, right? So on the numerator, on the top of the fraction, it's going to be the compliance flag. Give me the sum of that. And then also give me the sum based on if a follow-up is required and the owner name is Alex Martinez and the lead source is builder partner in this example. And then we want to drag it over and drag it down, which I'll show you how to do that as well, because it's not so straightforward. So equals sum if s, table, follow-up compliant flag. We want to sum that if, again, table owner name is, you can sort of see the blue, they call them ants, but you can see it behind here. And then table, not lead ID, lead source is this, and table, and then what was it called? Get out of here. And then here, follow-up required flag. Follow-up required flag here is 1. And I'll show you sort of the numerator of the fraction. Yeah, so this is the numerator, right? And so we have that, which is good, but now we need to divide it, right? We need to divide it to see if it was compliant. And the way we do that is with the follow-up required flag. So we're not going to do the compliant flag, we're going to do the required flag. So we're going to divide this by the sum if s. You could also do count if s if you want to, but we're going to do table follow-up required flag, comma, and now the criteria. So it's just Alex Martinez and builder partner. So table owner name is this, comma, and then table lead source is this. And then I'm going to close the brackets, and we get 25%. Right? So not very good. 25%, Alex Martinez for builder partner is compliant 25% of the time. He's not following up enough. Okay, so now we want to drag this over and down, but what you're going to notice is an error. And the reason is because this is what's called relative referencing. So all of these shift over. So the follow-up compliant flag changes to whatever, the column next to it is, H22 turns to I22, I21 turns to J21, and you can see that here. So the only thing that's actually working here is J21. We do want this to go to direct mail, but we don't want this to be 25%, right? We want it to stay on Alex Martinez. And so we have to tell Excel, like, hey, if I drag it over, I want the owner name to not change, but I want builder partner to go to direct mail, Facebook. But as I drag it down, and I'll show you here, I don't want builder partner to come down. I want it to stay the same, but I do want the owner name to come down. And so you have to lock things with $signs, essentially. So anywhere you see H22, or the column, essentially, that you want to lock, put the $sign before the column, which is the letter. If you look at the top, columns are denoted by letters. And then anywhere you see the red or the row, it might be a different color for you, put the $sign before the number, after the letter, before the number, because numbers are rows. So same thing here, lock this, and then this. And then now there's still one more issue. It's because it's in a table. You can see estimate ID, follow compliant flag. So we don't want the table to change, but what you do is just copy this and then paste it over, and then we're good. Let me zoom out a little bit, because now what we want is I want to create a benchmark here. And so here, let's just say, 50%. And so I'm going to highlight everything, and then I'm going to go to Home, Conditional Formatting, highlight cell rules less than, and then click on this. And you can even see how this is also locked, $sign. So that's absolute at the row and the column level. So it won't change at all. And so now you have the benchmark, and you can change this, right? Nothing is above 75. And so, but what we want is we want to have the word benchmark. And you can see it's not working. And the reason is because it's being read as text, but we want to read it as a number. So we need to tell Excel, like, hey, make this, I want to see text before, but I also want to make sure that people know what that is. And so press Control-1 to get your format cell dialog box, go to custom, and then right here, quotations, cinch mark, colon, space, quotations, and now you have that here. And then the final thing I want to show, I know we're going on 30 minutes here. The final thing I want to show is sort of the same thing, but I want to get the count. I want to get the count of how many deals they had, because, if they only have one or two, then you might not, it might not be time to coach them yet. Or maybe it is, it's really dependent, this is dependent. But if we can get the count, then you can sort of see, what it is you want to coach them on. But what I'll do this. I'll paste his values, because I don't care about this, because it's super straightforward. All we need here is the denominator, right? The denominator is the total, and that's what we're wanting. So all you have to do is just copy everything after the fraction, and then equals, and paste. And the last thing we want to do is just drag this down, because the cells were referenced, because we just copied the formula, so like we didn't change anything. And then from here, Control-C and Control-V, and now you can see, which ones, might need coaching and might not be need coaching, based off of higher numbers. Like Sam Rivera, builder partner 19, it's like, 37% compliance rate, so they're not following up properly with 63% of the leads. But Taylor Wynn is, good. So Taylor Wynn needs to coach everybody here, right? On what their strategy is. All right, 29 minutes, 47 seconds. And so, yeah, if you have any questions on this, if you stuck this long, which maybe you didn't do that, or maybe most people didn't do that, shoot me an email, question@databoards, if you have any questions. If you want the file, links in the description. If you need some help structuring your data to be in a usable format like this, then there's a link to hop on my calendar, hop on a call, or you can shoot me an email, and maybe we can do it that way as well. But anyways, that's all I got for this video, and I'll see you in future videos.